On the principles of the renounced order of life and discipline, the Lord knew no compromise, and therefore, even though he knew that the king was a great devotee, he refused to see the king only because the king was a dollar and cents man. By this example, the Lord wanted to emphasize the proper behavior for a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist has nothing to do with women and money. He must always refrain from such intimate relations. Here are further details. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 11. Sarvam Bhattacharya said there is a king named Prataprudra Rai. He is very anxious to meet you and he wants your permission. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? Kene ayogya vachan. Why are you presenting a request that is not suitable?" And he immediately remembered Narayan. Karne hasta diya prabhu smare Narayan. Placing his hands on his ears, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he remembered the holy name of Lord Narayan. He immediately recited Narayan, Narayan. विरक्त सन्यासी अमार राज दर्शन स्त्री दर्शन सम विषेर भक्षण. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. निष्किंचनस्य भगवद् भजनोन्मुखस्य पारं परं जिगमिशोर भवसागरस्य संदर्शनं विषयिणाम् अथ योषितां च हा हन्त हन्त भिषभक्षणतोऽप्यसाधु. Greatly lamenting, the Lord informed Sarvam Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested, is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." So, this is a very, very uh, dangerous activity. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into spiritual activities. This is the process of Bhakti Yoga. In the material world, the via media for sense gratification is mainly a woman. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid women. A sannyasi should never see a man or a woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men and women are also dangerous and they are compared to drinking poison. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict on this point. He therefore refused to see King Prataprudra, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs. The Lord even refused to see the king, despite the request of a personality like Sarvam Bhattacharya, who was the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. Association is a very, very strict uh, factor which determines our spiritual progress or our spiritual regress. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very careful because he was taking the role of an acharya, demonstrating what we should do and what we should not do. The Lord wanted to emphasize one of the cardinal principles of Krishna consciousness, which he also brought out before Srila Sanatan Goswami, and that is presented in Madhya Leela, chapter 22. Asat Sangatyage Vaishnava Achar, Stri Sangiyaka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta. A Vaishnava should always avoid the association of ordinary people. This is the behavior of a Vaishnava. Common people are very much materially attached, especially to women. Vaishnavas should also avoid the company of those who are not devotees of Lord Krishna. And then, as an evidence for that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, Satyam Shaucham Daya Maunam Buddhi Hri Shri Yashak Kshama Shamo Damo Bhagascheti Yat Sangad Yati Sankshayam Teshva Shanteshu Mudheshu Khanditatma Sadhushu Sangam Nakuryachochyeshu Yoshit Krita Mrigeshu Cha न तथास्य भवेन् मोहो बन्धश्चान्य प्रसंगतः योषित संगात यथा पुंसो यथा तत्संगी संगतः. By association with worldly people, one becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all opportunities. One should not at any time associate with the coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self realization and who is no more than a toy animal in the hands of a woman. The illusion and bondage that accrue to a man from attachment to any other object are not as complete as that resulting from association with a woman or with men too much attached to women. These verses quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam were spoken by Lord Kapila Deva. Generally, people do not know about the miserable conditions within the womb of a mother in any species of life. Due to bad association, one gradually falls into lower species. Association with women is greatly stressed in this regard. When one becomes attached to women or to those who are attached to women, one falls down into the lower species. According to Vedic civilization, one's association with women should be very much restricted. In spiritual life, there are four ashramas: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. The brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi are completely forbidden to associate with women. Only grihasthas are allowed to associate with women under certain very much restricted conditions. That is, one associates with women to propagate nice children. Other reasons for association are condemned. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as an ideal sannyasi, was demonstrating what uh, brahmacharya means. Srila Sridhar Swami, the great Bhagavatam commentator, um, in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.13, defines brahmacharya as having 8 aspects: Maranam, Kirtanam, Kelih, Prekshanam, Guhya Bhashanam, Sankalpo, Dhyavasayascha, Kriya, Nirvrittirevacha. Etan Maithunam Ashtangam Pravadanti Manishinaha Viparitam Brahmacharyam Metad Devashta Lakshanam. He says that he's actually quoting from an authority uh, which says that there are 8 types of sex life. The first one is to think of woman. The second is to talk to woman with a romantic or sexual spirit. Third is to flirt with woman or dally with woman. And the next is to look at woman. Uh, Obviously, it means to look lustfully. Then to talk intimately with woman. To decide to engage in sexual intercourse. To endeavor for sexual intercourse. And to actually fulfill sexual intercourse. These are 8 divisions of sex life. All of them are considered to be sex. Etan maithunam ashtangam pravadanti manishinaha. Learned souls, they say, they have proclaimed that these are the 8 divisions of uh, sex life, sexual activity. Viparitam brahmacharyam eta devashta lakshanam. And the opposite of, and to avoid each of these 8 is called brahmacharya, which also is divided into 8 divisions. The 8 divisions of brahmacharya is to not think of women, to not speak about sex life, to not dally with women, to not look lustfully at women, to not talk intimately with women, to not decide to engage in sexual intercourse, and to not endeavor for sex life, and to not engage in sex life. So this is called celibacy. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as an acharya, wanted very much to emphasize that sannyasis should not have anything to do with this. It is not enough that if we simply avoid this, that means we are 1/8 brahmachari, 1/8 celibate. To be 8/8 celibate, to be fully celibate, it means I have to avoid all of this by being fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the pure Vaishnava acharyas. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to emphasize this. Of course, this also, it doesn't mean this only applies for sannyasis. It applies for vanaprasthas, for grihasthas, for brahmacharis. For women, it means they should not think about marriage. They should not speak about sex life with men. They should not dally with men. They should not look lustfully at men. They should not talk intimately with men. They should not decide to engage in sexual intercourse with men. Nor should they endeavor for sex life with men, nor should they engage in sex life with men. Because celibacy, as presented by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is an essential aspect of Krishna consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very particular about this. He was very, very strict about this. So, so the idea is not only is a celibate person avoiding women, one should also avoid those who are attached to women. Stri Sangi Eka Sadhu. To associate with those who are attached to women is in fact more dangerous than to associate with women. Because sangat sanjayate kama, one develops desires corresponding to one's association. I associate with a woman hunter, I will also develop the desire to hunt for women. I I associate with the drunkard, then I will also develop the desire to drink. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has demonstrated that that we should avoid associating with those who are in intimate contact with women. Prataprudra is a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas generally have many wives, many maids, and so on. They have intimate relationships with them, and that is allowed in Vedic Dharma. Provided they do their business, they're allowed to have this. But that doesn't mean that a brahmachari, a separated vanaprastha, a celibate vanaprastha, celibate vanaprastha, and a sannyasi should have intimate relationship with such a person. Now, the point to be noted is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu certainly was aware that King Prataprudra was a Vaishnava, but still, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in order to teach us, the general mass of unintelligent devotees, uh, that we should be very, very cautious and careful and refrain from intimate relationships with those who are in uh, who are mixing with money and women. Uh, Therefore, he demonstrated this. The law, the king was, however, favored by the Lord by the expert arrangement of the devotees. But the devotees made an arrangement for King Prataprudra to dress up as a Vaishnava and go and serve Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. Important lessons to be learned. One important lesson that we can learn on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's behavior is that in the name of preaching, Lord Chaitanya was certainly preaching. In the name of preaching, he never compromised practice. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one article that he wrote in Sajjan Toshani, he says this: रुचि अनुसार है भक्तगण तीन प्रकार अर्थात आचार प्रधान भक्त, प्रचार प्रधान भक्त और आचार प्रचार संपन्न भक्त. उत्तम मध्यम कनिष्ठ विचार करिले आचार प्रचार संपन्न सर्वश्रेष्ठ. केवल आचार प्रधान भक्त मध्यम, केवल प्रचार प्रधान भक्त कनिष्ठ. साधुदिगेर धर्माचरणेर नाम आचार, সেই ধর্ম জগতে অন্য জীবের নিকট প্রচার করার নাম প্রচার. Which means, in accordance with their taste, devotees are of three types. That is, devotees mainly engaged in achar. Achar means behavior. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain what this means. Devotees mainly engaged in prachar. Prachar means propagation, preaching. He will also explain what this means. And devotees endowed with achar and prachar. So the idea is there are devotees who are mainly absorbed in the practice of Krishna consciousness. There are some other devotees who are mainly engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness. And there are devotees endowed with both the practice and propagation of Krishna consciousness. If we deliberate on the Uttama, Madhyama and Kanishta devotees, we find that it is the devotee endowed with achar and prachar to be the best of all of them. Devotees mainly engaged only in achar or madhyama. Devotees mainly engaged in only prachar or kanishta. Executing the religious principles of the saintly pure devotees is called achar. To preach those religious principles to other jivas in the world is called prachar. So the kanishta devotees are mainly interested in preaching. They are weak in practice. The madhyama devotees have developed a taste for practice, so they are mainly engaged in practice. They also preach, obviously. And then the topmost devotees, they are endowed with both achar and prachar. They shine in both fields. And this article actually continues, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out that the ideal preacher was Thakur Haridas. Haridas was the ideal preacher. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here is demonstrating the need to be very cautious in our association. Not that in the name of preaching we destroy our spiritual life. Preaching means we are sharing our Krishna consciousness. So whichever level of Krishna consciousness I am at, I can only bring people up to that point. I cannot bring people beyond that point. So we have to be very careful about this.